I can start with just introducing Intuit a little bit. How many? Mookie talked about as if everybody knew what Intuit is. How many of you know Intuit, the company Intuit? Oh, quite a lot, about half. Okay, so yes, we do refer to Intuit as a 32-year-old startup. It was founded in 1983 by Scott Cook. Scott is still very active in the company, and as Mookie said, one of the finest innovators and design thinkers that I know. We serve both consumers and small businesses and accountants with financial software. Mint.com you might know for consumers, TurboTax for consumers as well. We do software for professional accountants. And then we have QuickBooks, our portfolio of products branded QuickBooks that serve small businesses. And it's mostly the evolution of QuickBooks that I want to talk to you about today. Now let's see, where does this go? Well, I'm probably not using it correctly. Is it the right one here?
You can give us that small device.
I'll just do that. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. Simplifying the business of life is our brand promise at Intuit. This is actually just a pic I grabbed of Will from the design team. So I just thought that's a good picture of him. So you know a little bit about Intuit. Scott Cook refers to customer-driven innovation and design for delight as the secret weapon of Intuit. And there is no other secret weapons. These are the ones. Customer-driven innovation is the what, and design for delight is the how. And everything we do at Intuit starts with what we call CDI, the Customer-Driven Innovation Model, which is all about, you start by finding an important and large customer problem that you or those that we enable can solve well, because we're a platform, and so we have developers building on a platform, so our development partners is an important part of our ecosystem. So find an important customer problem that we can solve well, or those that we serve can solve well, and build durable competitive advantage based on that. Now, in today's world, durable competitive advantage for online companies are mostly around network effects. And that's probably the single most important durable competitive advantage that we're going after as well. When you think about online companies, most of them, that's the competitive advantage that they want to build, right? Facebook. I can use Microsoft Word, and it's a powerful tool for me as an individual. Facebook isn't really powerful unless all my friends are on there, right? So it's at least two-sided networks that create these network effects. Airbnb wouldn't be much worth it if you didn't have people renting out their apartments, only people looking for it, right? Or Uber wouldn't be worth much if you only had people looking for cars but nobody driving them. So those types of network effects where products get better all the time because people produce content or outside developers produce functionality that make your products better while you sleep is kind of the holy grail of online business models today, and for us as well. Design for delight. So in the past 8 or 9 years, Intuit has been on this huge journey to become a design-driven company, and D for D, as we call it, Design for Delight, became our version of design thinking. And we trained 1,200 people. We call them innovation catalysts, because design is not just for designers. Design is not a department, right? Design is a mindset. And if you want to be a design-driven organization, you spread that mindset into the organization. And one of the ways in which we did that, or which we do that today, is via the innovation catalysts. And they're trained in the techniques of design for delight, which, just briefly stating, is all about customer empathy, deep understanding and empathy for the customer problem that you're solving in the situation that that particular group of people are in. And then going broad to go narrow, allow yourself to explore multiple different scenarios or potential solutions before you narrow. make sure you fall in love with the problem, not the solution. True for any designer, right? You don't want to fall in love with your own solution, but you do want to fall in love with the problem that you're solving. And then rapid experimentation with customers, which in the last couple of years at Intuit really has been around lean experimentation, which is something that we hold very dearly and practice almost religiously. As a matter of fact, you'll see many projects at Intuit, especially if you go to Scott Cook. Scott Cook will listen and he'll give you feedback, and his first question will be, this is awesome, really interesting, I like your hypothesis, how can you test it before Friday? Not testing it in terms of sending out a survey, not testing it in terms of interviewing someone qualitatively, although that's an important part of getting insights. But how can you test it in the market with real people using real functionality? And so that's often the challenge, like a couple of days turnaround in putting a prototype out into the world through which you can understand whether you're actually adding value. And that's the next thing about our approach, which is what we call our success metrics or our succession metrics. You might think that if you go to a Scott Cook or a Brad Smith, our CEO, that the first thing they'd say, oh, I love your idea. You know, can you take market share? You know, how fast can you make it profitable? No, that is not their first question. As a matter of fact, that comes way, way, way down the line. Their first question is around what we call the value hypothesis, not the growth hypothesis. The value hypothesis is, starts with the question, can you convince one customer out there that you have something that solves a problem for him or her? Just show me one. Start with one. We call it a unit of one. And then you begin to look at what we call love metrics. So are you delivering real customer benefit, which is the flip side of the problem you're solving, right? And are you doing it in a very simple manner and delighting people along the way, creating an emotional connection? So that unit of one is the first thing that we look at. And then we begin to look at cohorts, where you compare people through the funnel and drop-offs, et cetera. You might compare your cohort of customers to a competitor's cohort of customers, et cetera, and begin to understand, is the value, it's still about the value that you offer better or competitive to other products or prototypes out there. Then you begin to look at some of the growth hypotheses, the growth questions involved in terms of market penetration and market share, and finally, of course, the financials of it. And that, you know, this side of it is more around the growth hypothesis. Can you grow this and actually capture market share in the market? This is about the value hypothesis, about the value that you deliver to a customer, and that's where everything starts. Lots of people, lots of startups with the wrong people on their boards start with this, not with the customer problem that they're solving and the benefit that they're delivering. So the problem, this all sounds good, I'm sure, as you know, as designers, this makes sense, I assume. But when I joined Intuit about 4 years ago, in the beginning, early 2012, we still worked like this. And it was probably the result of us being a very successful desktop company, working in a pretty traditional waterfall model. But even in our online products, QuickBooks Online was actually launched back in 2001, way ahead of its time, way before anyone would ever want to use a SaaS product, especially for their financials. But we were in mindset and in financial terms, a desktop company. And so this is how we worked. You know, you define the requirements, you design against those requirements, then you build against your designs. And once that hits the market, things have changed in the world, right? You got to start all over. That's what we learned from Waterfall. But the problem that we had when I joined Intuit, and especially in the small business group, with QuickBooks, and these are old pictures of QuickBooks from when I joined, is that we had immense complexity. So that's why I laughed a little bit when you said it's easy to use, because I hope so today, certainly easier, but that was not the case back then. Just in 2012, there was a lot of complexity in our products. And keep in mind that the small business group really functioned like 6 different business units that all built products and services for the small business segment or market, but they did it in very different ways. So, you know, there's variance in the tone and voice across products. There's inconsistency in visual design. I just grabbed a couple of mobile apps. You know, you can't tell that these come from the same company. We had very loose connections, so you could sign up for one product and then you could go on to the next and we knew nothing about you. So data didn't travel at all, and we showed our org structure in our designs. Now, I'm sure many of you either work for a company today or have worked for a company where you show the org design comes up in your product design. Very clearly in ours, you could see what was payroll. You could see, oh, now I'm in QuickBooks, that's different. Or now I'm in payments, that's different again. Didn't need to be a designer to see this. And so the result is that as a customer, when you use one product and then move to another product within our franchise, you had to learn it all over again. There was nothing that was learned in the first product that could be reused. So if you want to build usage of an ecosystem of products, that's clearly not the way to go about it. And so that was part of the problem that we had, growing the usage of the offerings in our small business group. Some people call it, if you look in MBA books, right, jumping the S-curve. It was almost like we had to pedal a little harder to produce the same financial results. And it was not a long-term a viable proposition for the business. And so as we understood that the SaaS market and the transformation to the cloud from desktop obviously is the future, but now became really the future for our customers as well. We knew that we had to completely reimagine QuickBooks Online. And that's what we called Project Harmony. And it's probably I think it's the largest design project, maybe an even most complex design project that I have been fortunate to be part of and lead. So hopefully some of the learnings that I've had with Project Harmony, I can pass on to you and we can discuss that. Now I apologize for all the text here, but really boil it down, we had to do three things with Project Harmony. Develop a new scalable UI framework and unify the disparate models that you saw from the previous products, and then institute a completely new way of working for our designers and developers. And it was interesting because when this project started, I remember saying to our leadership team, our CEO, et cetera, that this is going to be more of a social engineering project than a UI engineering project. And boy, was I right. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over the year or two that this took. You know, there are many things I probably would have done differently, but I'll share some of those learnings. This was one of the most important things that we did early on, is that we instituted a set of decision criteria. Now again, remember, we had like 6 independent businesses with very smart, capable, independent general managers leading each of these businesses. You know, from the various business units, the best that I could find, and just pooled them together, not structurally, but you know, around this shared agenda. But I got the GMs of all these businesses to shake hands, literally, in a meeting against a set of decision criteria, 3 of which you see here. Maybe the most important one is number 2, and I'll read that. When there are common jobs or tasks across products, Intuit will use common designs and components. It may not be the best for one, but it will be the best for all. Now, getting people to shake hands on something like that is really, really important. And it's a lot easier said than done. So the fact that we had a set of, I think there were around 10 decision criteria like this, that I could refer back to when the going got tough, was really, really important. So we started working, we approached the design process of Harmony completely differently. We started by breaking down the application into its component parts. So we started with things like structure and layering logic. So where's the navigation, where's the header, where's the footer. We defined structure such as a stage, which is where we show information visualization. We had things like left panel and right panel, drawers that came in from the right. Trousers, we had actually a key element in our experience today. We called it a transaction browser. It's where all transactions happen. you see this window come down in front of your screen, and you can focus on that transaction, and then disappears again and leaves you where you started. We call that a transaction browser, and it was then endearingly called the trouser. So back then I thought, we should go to market, and the ad campaign should be something like QuickBooks now with trousers. But the marketing team didn't really buy that. We defined application components, things like drop-downs, calendar pickers, all that you need, and we defined the elements of the visual system really, really early on. Now, we refer to it as transit for a reason. This was before iOS 7, and this was before flat was in, and a lot of discussions, in the industry, even beyond designers, about skeuomorphisms in Apple's design. My taxi driver started talking to me about skeuomorphisms. Then you know that it's kind of a term that's expanded its meaning a little bit. But we went very flat. As a matter of fact, we went so flat that we kind of had to reverse a little bit after we launched, especially on mobile devices, because one of the things we learned is that when you lose the layering on small objects, you actually lose one medium of communication. So we started going a little lighter on the flat principle, but that's where we started. Color palette was defined, and the colors associated with all the information visualization, as you can imagine or know from the products that you use, information visualization when it comes to financial management is really important. And so with all those elements in place, really, developers at Intuit, which they were part of this process. We have some really good design thinkers in our development team. So they could actually design and build a lot of the pages by themselves. When it was pretty straightforward, they had all the elements, they had the principles, they had the components, they had the patterns. They could build them by themselves. And then our designers could focus more on, well, what's next? How do we innovate to make this even better for the user? And they could focus on emotional design, which for designers today, in a mobile world where everything is trying to grab our attention, that emotional connection is so important. No product today really succeeds without creating that, some level of emotional connection. And designers need time to do that. It doesn't just come out of kind of thin air. You have to think about how can you create that extra moment of delight. And we probably all know it intuitively, even if we can't articulate it. It's a little bit like jazz, right? We all know it, that moment when we go, oh, that's kind of neat. And that's kind of the moment that we're looking for. Those moments of truth where we can connect with people in a way where we know that they will kind of remember it here, not just up here. So, how are we doing? I couldn't show a lot of data about this, and this goes back a couple of years now, but to be honest, when you looked at both ourselves, so QuickBooks Online, and our competitors, from what we refer to as the love metrics, so benefits, ease of use, and delight, it was all kind of meh, to be honest. There was nothing to write home about. You could say that this competitor here sticks out a little bit on ease, but mostly it was kind of meh. And when we launched and then measured the love metrics, it was actually quite phenomenal. It was give or take 2x what we had in market. Really, really happy with that result. And of course, this goes back to, we launched this in 2013, so this is data back from 2013. But if you look at our customer growth in QuickBooks Online, we have had 9 quarters of increasing growth every quarter. Not just growth every quarter, but increasing growth quarter over quarter for 9 quarters now. So we're quite happy with those results, and of course that's a result of the whole company shifting its attention and its focus to the online, to the SaaS world, to the cloud offerings. but Project Harmony was a big component of that. Harmony is now available actually on harmony.intuit.com. So we make that freely available for everyone to use. As a matter of fact, we kind of hope that developers who build on our platform will use this system so that we create an experience in the small business world that is consistent for small businesses as they use various different applications. Small businesses use anywhere between 15 and 20 apps to run their business, anywhere from Excel, spreadsheets, to QuickBooks, to you name it, apps that they use to to run their business. After we launched this, we then dove into really redefining the brand of QuickBooks, and that's something that's not quite launched yet, but that was kind of built. You can say we built brand on top of this product strategy. And when you look around the industry today, building this type of design system, not in a skin deep way, but quite deep in terms of defining patterns and principles and components, and of course style guides, etc., is becoming more and more necessary and used. So we have what we call Harmony. Of course, Google has really doubled down on their design approach. Pretty amazing job, actually, I think, Google over the past 5 years, and then kind of all articulated in Google material, and now a rebranding on top of Google material that they have rolled out and done a wonderful job with. You have other design systems, of course, out there, like the IBM design language, quite deep, and the Uber design system. You can go on and on and on, but they're quite deep systems that are used and evolving. It's not like in the old days when you thought about brand. Here are my brand, visual assets, etc., and they're stored somewhere, and you can use them, and here are the do's and don'ts. It's way beyond that, and these are evolving systems that change dynamically with month by month. But it changes the way we design, right? Because designers at Intuit now are not applications designers, they're systems designers. It's very, very different. No one designs a new flow or a new component or a new way of solving a problem without thinking about it from the systems level, which is, well, which other problems does this solve in which other products or use cases? And how can I create a pattern out of this as opposed to a single solution for this particular problem that I have right here? And that's been a little bit of a journey, a change in mindset, a change in processes, a change in the way we work. That has not been easy, and it's a change that we will continue to focus on. So with that, thank you very much. I think